You've joined us right here on the India Development Debate. I'm Taneia Bhardwwaj and we're coming to you live from our Mumbai studios. 4 months after the Supreme Court allowed the entry of women of all ages into the Sabarimala temple, a 5-judge constitution bench headed by Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi today started hearing a batch of 65 review and 4 writ petitions opposing the entry of women into the temple. In a sudden change of stance, Kerala's Travancore Devaswom Board has said that they decided to support, respect and implement the Supreme Court order. Former President of the board and the BJP have criticised this U-turn and blamed political pressure for it. The Kerala government stood by its decision of implementing the Supreme Court judgment, while Congress leader Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who represented the former Temple Board chairman, contested that constitutional morality cannot apply in matters of religion as a blanket rule. So, the question we're asking tonight is barring a section of women from the Sabarimala temple about respecting temple traditions. Has religion, law and faith become hostage to state politics? The Sabarimala controversy is what we're putting the spotlight on this evening on this edition of the India Development Debate. And let me first welcome our panel for the evening and introduce you to them. From the CPIM, we've got M.B. Rajesh, who's joining in. From the BJP, Narendra Taneja is here with us. Senior lawyer Abha Singh joins in, and so does Suvidat M. Sundaram, lawyer for the People for Dharma. Each one of you, thank you so much for taking the time out. Abha, let me begin by asking you, really lay the context for us. Close to 65 review petitions in the court. What did you make of the representations made today? It's seeming more and more that things are turning political than the actual issue of religion and gender being brought about.
You are very right. In fact, it started as a gender justice issue. It started as a women's right to pray, enter the temple, because Article 16 clearly prohibits any discrimination on grounds of religion, race or sex. And I think keeping that in mind, the Supreme Court Constitutional Bench had allowed women to enter Sabarimala temple. But today the judgment is reserved because it's no longer just a gender justice issue. It has become a law and order problem. It has become a political vendetta, a vested interests, I would say, because it's become a BJP and the Kerala government, because now they are using women as a tool to further their political mandate. It is no longer something only to do with gender justice, and I think that is why the Supreme Court today has reserved the order. It's going to be very difficult to come out with something, because be it Shashi Tharoor, the sitting MP, is in support of not letting women enter the Sabarimala temple, the Prime Minister, Amit Shah. So you can clearly see that it is not about rights of women or their freedom to pray, but it has become something of a political battle.
Okay. Mr. M.B. Rajesh, let me come to you. There have been apparent allegations today that the Travancore Devaswom Board was pressurized somewhere by the LDF government to alter its stance of opposing the entry of women to the shrine, as was its position during the earlier government's time. How do you respond to that charge?
First of all, after the Supreme Court verdict, historic verdict on Sabarimala women entry, the Devaswom Board had never questioned or opposed Supreme Court verdict. On the contrary, they had sought more time for implementation of the judgments. Secondly, once this judgment is given by the Supreme Court, how Devaswom Board can oppose it? Thirdly, my question to those people who are arguing that Devaswom Board has been pressurized by the government, my question is that who pressurized RSS and BJP to take a U-turn? Initially, all these Sangh Parivar outfits welcomed Supreme Court judgment on Sabarimala issue. RSS mouthpiece in Kerala, in Malayalam, had carried a series of articles, and even they wrote an editorial to welcome the historic judgment of the Supreme Court. BJP leadership welcomed it. RSS General Secretary Mr. Bhayaji Joshi, he himself entered the scene and welcomed this historic judgment. Then they took a U-turn. Who pressurized them? Whether government of Kerala pressurized RSS and BJP also to take a U-turn. So this Devaswom Board is an autonomous institution. It has nothing to do with the government. It is not controlled by the government. They had never opposed Supreme Court judgments. They cannot oppose judgments. They only sought more time for implementation, and now they have taken a position which they have explained in the courts.
So that the temple board never opposed this decision. All they did was ask for more time. Mr. Taneja, let me ask you, both your central as well as state leadership has made it very clear that faith comes before equality in the eyes of the law for the BJP. Now, with the temple board's reversal in stance, or as of course Mr. Rajesh said, not quite, will you review your position as well on this?
I think, we got to understand a few facts very clearly. The communist government in Kerala. I mean, the world knows the communists, they don't believe in religion. They don't understand faith. India's traditions, history, spirituality, they don't respect all that because, simply they don't believe in religion. Now, here is a government which does believe in religion, but it has got the temple board which basically is reporting to them. So evidently, since the communists, they don't believe in that, and the temple, they believe not only in God, they also have this centuries and centuries old tradition. So they're clearly under pressure. Since they are under the pressure, so they will say what, for instance, the communist government wants them to say. It's very clear. But we got to understand one thing, in ours is a very complex country. Many of us, including Tanya, you and me, who have been privileged enough, went to good schools, Western education and all that. We have a very different view when it comes to gender justice, when it comes to religious practices, and even, some other practices. Our view is different because many of us are very privileged. We born, brought up in, went to good schools, good university, but there are millions of our people, our own brothers, sisters, our own countrymen. They were not as privileged as us, or probably they have a different view. In democracy, they're entitled to their view. They take a different take when it comes to such practices. Now the question is it for the court to intervene in such matters? This is something which needs to be debated. It's nothing to do, and there are many temples in southern part of the country and other part of the country where men are not allowed. There are so many rituals in our homes here in Delhi where when such rituals happen, men are actually asked to leave the room. Now the question is that, it's a very long debate. If somebody talks like this in black and white or yes and no, then you say, oh, this man is against the right of women. No, that's not what it is. It's far more complex than that. And therefore, you see, the point here is that slowly and slowly things are changing in our country as well in terms of practices and all that. Because when, at the same time, when those people who practice certain, look at these things certain way, they also will over a period of time will have a different take, a different view of this issue. But I think it has been politicized because the left government there, the communist government there, they basically are using it in order to propagate and impose their own ideology, which is extremely unfortunate. They are not going by the constitution, they are going by their ideology. Their first commitment to their communist ideology, Constitution of India comes somewhere down the line, maybe 20th or 30th or 100th, because they don't care. They believe in authoritarian regime and they have absolutely no faith when it comes to religion. They are there to impose communism on the people of Kerala, and which is not acceptable.
We'll give Mr. Rajesh, a chance to respond. But before that, let's get opening comments from Suvidat Sundaram. Mr. Sundaram, the People for Dharma, the movement, many say is a clear violation of Article 15, which states very clearly that the state will not discriminate against any citizen on the grounds of sex and age. And nothing in this article should prevent the state from making any special provision for women. How do you respond to that criticism that comes your way?
See, in fact, today's, after hearing of the arguments from both the sides, the constitutional bench has reserved the order and would be pronouncing the order probably in another 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, 7 days time has been given for, for filing written submissions from both the sides. Well, now that is at the very outset. Now, coming to the discussion point, in a legal, viewpoint, I would say that more to Article 15, I would say Article 25 and 26 has got, more, weightage, because the reason is here, considering the Sabarimala temple, I mean the Lord Ayyappa's temple at Sabarimala, which is, which is having a separate set of practice, because the deity, presiding deity inside the Ayyappa temple is a Naishtik Brahmachari, that means an eternal celibate. So therefore, the nature of the deity need to be considered. So such exclusion, as everyone knows, that 10 to 50 age group women won't be permitted in their, fertile age. See, that is an exclusionary practice which is coming out of the nature of the deity, not that, okay, we are discriminating them. See, I am totally against any sort of discrimination, but when it comes to the essential practice of religion, which the Honorable Supreme Court, right from Shirur Mutt to the Shaira Banu case, they have clearly laid down the guidelines, and they have discussed it at length. So therefore, this particular judgment, which was pronounced a few months back by the Constitutional Bench, ought to be reviewed. And there are so many loopholes, there are so many contradictions among the judges, because some judges have said that, okay, this is a matter of untouchability. Some are saying that, okay, this is something to do with the patriarchal system. No, it's all derived in a wrong premises. So therefore, my prime point is this is an exclusionary practice which is separate from the other practices which are followed in other temples. Therefore, this practice need to be given a denominational status.
Okay.
So therefore, Article 25 and 26 is more important than the equality part, which the so-called feminist or maybe the activist allege.
Okay,
So
okay,
therefore,
right.
I strongly believe, because I have filed 2 review petitions, one for the people for Dharma and other for the royal family members. So we are very hopeful that this time Honorable Supreme Court would be reviewing their own judgment.
Okay. Abha, let me ask you, and 2 questions really. The point first that Mr. Sundar made about how it's not so much Article 15, but it's 25 and 26 that has more weightage. That's one part of the question. So, help our sort of viewers navigate that. The other part is that the Council for Kerala, government has said that disruption in social peace can't be a ground to let a constitutional wrong persist. And then you had Abhishek Manu Singhvi, who was representing the former temple board chairman, saying that one can't apply constitutional morality in matters of religion as a blanket rule. Does the case entirely depend now on constitutional interpretation of the bench?
Supreme Court has made it very clear that constitutional morality is above religious morality. Now coming to whether Article 14, 15 are more important or it is Article 25 and 26, I would like to tell that there are exceptions already prescribed under Article 25 and 26, which says public order, morality and health. These will superimpose on Article 25, which is freedom for religion to practice, propagate or profess the religion. So automatically there are checks on this right to religion. Also Article 21, there are so many Supreme Court observations and judgments which say right to life is the most important, it's the crux of all the rights, and right to life also includes the right to live with dignity. And here you are violating the very dignity of the woman by stopping her from entering the temple. Earlier this issue was clearly decided that Ayappa is not the sect is not a denomination, and as it is, my earlier speaker was saying, practice versus religion. So where does a practice be protected? When the practice violates Article 15, it is Article 15 which has to be upheld, and Supreme Court has clearly said that there are no denominations, it is Hindu religion per se which has to be taken into, which has to be looked into, and there is no discrimination between a man and women. So that is the reason Supreme Court said women would enter the temple. And when the Devaswom Board now takes a U-turn and says that we have no problem, we want women to enter, I would like to tell you that as per the Evidence Act, section 115 of the Evidence Act, which is estoppel, it clearly says that if any party has taken a particular stand which has led to a particular judgment to come, then the party cannot take a U-turn or turn around. So estoppel would be something which Supreme Court would be looking into. Even if there was some board takes a U-turn now, it would not hold any merit. So these are the issues which Supreme Court will look into.
Okay.
And right to life, Article 21 is above any other article, and that clearly protects the dignity of the woman. And when you stop her at the temple, you violate her basic dignity. And that is what Supreme Court has kept in mind. In fact, the contempt filed against the Tantri, who went in for purification of the temple because 2 women had entered. That is also even a very serious matter, that you are somewhere, the bench had said that it is something akin to untouchability, although there are differences on that point, but nonetheless, it is women's rights first which come into the thing, her equality before law, prohibition of discrimination, and religion, right to religion is not absolute. It has public order, morality and health, and you can see public order. There's such a law and order issue. People are on the verge of being injured. The Kerala is coming to a standstill. So those things have to be taken into consideration.
Abba, since you brought up law and order, let's actually, that brings me to my next question to Mr. M.B. Rajesh. The Kerala government, Mr. Rajesh, has admitted that just 2 women between the age of 10 and 50 have entered the shrine following the Supreme Court's order. Tell us, why has the state failed to implement the top court's judgment despite trying very hard? We know. Is it because the people of Kerala are just not in favor of the judgment?
Before coming to your replying to your question, let me make some clarifications regarding BJP spokesperson's allegations. He was just beating around the bush and conveniently avoided specific issues raised by me. Number one, he was alleging that the CPIM-led government is imposing its ideology and destroying Sabarimala. I would like to remind him that in the recent budget, the government has allocated an amount of 739 crores to Sabarimala alone. And that was for making arrangements there, that was for reconstruction of flood-hit Sabarimala and for other facilities. So a huge amount of rupees 739 crore was allocated by the left-wing government for Sabarimala. Number two, he conveniently avoided my specific question that who pressurized RSS and BJP to take a U-turn. Why you initially welcomed the Supreme Court judgment, why your mouthpiece carried series of articles, why your mouthpiece welcomed the judgment in an editorial, and why you suddenly took a U-turn. So it was you who politicized the entire issue, and you have no answers, then making allegations against CPIM and the left-wing government in Kerala. Now coming back to your question, see, the government of Kerala has not failed in implementing the Supreme Court judgment. That is why 2 women entered the Sabarimala shrine. But the government has handled the issue with utmost caution and vigil. The government has spoiled all efforts by Sangh Parivar and other Hindutva extremist forces to create an unpleasant situation in Sabarimala. They unleash large-scale violence throughout the state. And in this complex situation, the government of Kerala has succeeded in handling the situation in a responsible way.
All right, all right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajesh. Mr. Taneja, I can see your hand up, so I'll come to you next. But, I'm sure you want to respond to what Rajesh has said, but I also want to ask, is Sabarimala the new Ayodhya? Do customs and conventions mean far more to the BJP than women empowerment?
Well, to answer your question, I think this, the 2 issues are completely different. You see, Ayodhya Ram Temple, this issue has been going on, if you read the history carefully, for 500 years. And Sabarimala and the judgment, these are new developments. You see, when it comes to the dignity of women, rights of women, as not only what's written in the Constitution, but we as a society, these are kind of you can't compromise. These are paramount, sacrosanct. Absolutely. I mean, these are not even open for any discussion. But the question is that, we have to understand, as I said earlier, we are a very complex society. Some of us have already moved to the 22nd century, and there are many of us who are still in the 17th century. Unfortunately, that's the kind of social structure we have. So when it comes to practices, as I said, there are many practices in religious, practices in our homes in Delhi and Bombay and all that, where women ask men to leave because that ritual has to take place. There's so many. We see that, witness that every day. But coming back to the real issue, what is the issue? Issue is that in Kerala, the communist government, as I repeat, the question is, your viewers will understand. I have yet to meet a communist who says that, I believe in religion. By very ideology, by very basic thought, they are against religion. And that's what precisely they are trying to use. They're trying to use the judgment of the Supreme Court, and that's why they are against the review in order to impose their ideology. and basically to convert Kerala, into a kind of communist state, a kind of, they can't make it North Korea overnight, but that ideologically and philosophically, that's what they want to actually do. So they're basically trying to put a kind of system in place where the Hindus of Kerala, they are denied their rights to go to temples. So they are trying to completely dismantle the religious order that has been in Kerala for centuries and centuries and centuries. And the constitution, that's against the constitution. My point is the political agenda that they have got, that is against the spirit of the constitution, the content of the constitution, and therefore they cannot be allowed to do that. And because their agenda is political. Otherwise, why did these two women, when they were there, the ambulance was, who organized the ambulance? Who organized the access? They did that. They did. The government did that. Okay. Now the question is that, when you think that you can do all this, impose communism on the people of Kerala, destroy all the temples, destroy all the practices, destroy religion, you think you can do it and nobody will object. So this is a political fight. If you are not able to fight with BJP politically on the ground, you are been killing BJP workers, RS workers all these years. Okay. And now you have come to this. So in a democratic country, this will not be accepted. We will resist. We will fight against you, and we will fight legally and constitutionally, because India is North Korea. India is not North Korea. India is not Cuba.
Okay. Mr. Sundaram, let me come to you. The Supreme Court has agreed to hear the review petitions. Are you seeing this as any sort of hope for your demands? And what will be your next step if we see status quo being maintained by, the top court?
See, the Honorable Supreme Court today have, after hearing both the sides at length, they have reserved the, reserved for the order, which would be coming. We are expecting this month itself. See, my expectation is they would review the judgment, because there are serious contradictions. There are serious contradictions in the judgment pronounced by the Honorable Supreme Court. The 5-judge constitutional bench. I can't specifically state, one by one, but still, because of the time paucity. But the major point which I could, tell in a discussion like this, that this discussion of, excluding a particular age group, women of a certain age group, is based on the deity, which is Naishtik Brahmachari, which is the deity, the Ayyappa, Lord Ayyappa, he himself have taken a vow that I won't be seeing any women of fertile age. So therefore, legally speaking, a deity just like you and me, just like anyone, has got a right to privacy. The privacy, his right to maintain his celibate nature. So therefore, that is a fundamental right. And in legally speaking, and in law, it is a well settled position that a deity is a minor. Yeah. So it is the the minor's interests need to be protected. So deity's interests need to be protected. Yeah. Therefore, court cannot say all of a sudden that the deity's interest is nowhere, and anyone can get inside this Sabarimala temple at Ayyappa temple at Sabarimala. That is impermissible. That is that too a practice which is having more than 800 years of standing. This has been this has been continuing for last 800 years. Yeah. So therefore, all of a sudden, the belief system which Hindu as well as few other religious people they have in this deity and Sabarimala temple cannot be overturned overnight. Okay. So therefore,
Mr. Sundaram, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. I have time for just one last question, and I want to end with Abha Singh where we started. Abha, the fact is that Parliament is very quiet on this. Politicians who talk of a new India, women empowerment are, pretty mute. This is a larger case of political class biases also coming to the fore, as we sort of started the show off by talking. Is emancipation of women only on paper in India? Should we have hope at all through the judiciary?
It's all on paper. The Parliament has been very quiet. In fact, the Women Reservation Bill has been introduced 5 times. It's been there for decades, but we are yet to get the 33% reservation. It was there in the 2014 mandate, but they've just just kept quiet. And I would like to say, when the earlier speaker was talking of living entity, Supreme Court clearly struck it down. It said, no, Ayyappa is not a living entity. So that ground cannot be taken, that because he's a Naishnik Brahmachari and that's why women cannot enter. That was not at all taken by the Supreme Court. But what is important, that women's rights are just being hijacked by political interests. They are just trying to do things to get votes, to get an entry into Kerala. Nobody is concerned about women empowerment, otherwise we would have got the 33% reservation. These triple talaq bill is yet to be passed. I mean, ordinance is being done for 2 terms. They are not ready to even pass that. They are not ready to give women, the Muslim women, the rights which they should have got. Even halala has not been struck down. Yes, it's only Supreme Court. They are only, it is only Supreme Court which has come to the rescue of women to some extent. But otherwise, lawmaking is the Parliament's job. And Supreme Court again and again has said that even in triple talaq, it said that we are striking it null and void, but it's the Parliament which has to pass the law. And when these progressive parties are not ready to pass the triple talaq bill, I have no hopes from them that even in this they would try to give women what is their due. 50% of the population we are, but because we do not matter as a vote bank, as a result, we don't get what we should have got, which is our due, which is rightfully ours.
Right, I'm afraid we are completely timed out, but I want to thank each one of you for this discussion. Abha Singh, Suvidat Sundaram, Mr. Narendra Taneja, and of course, MB Rajesh. Thank you so much for taking the time out for us here on the India Development Debate.